It's 2004. You're at your friend's house, the friend whose parents didn't check the ESRB ratings. The door to his room is closed. The controller is in your hands, and your thumbs are hovering over the buttons with the precision of a safecracker. R1, R2, L1, R2, left, down. Right up, left, down, right up. You don't need to look it up. You don't need to check a sheet of paper. Your fingers just know. And the moment you hit that final button, the message pops up on screen, and suddenly you have every weapon in the game. But here's the strange part. You already beat the game twice. You don't need the weapons. So why did typing in that cheat code, why did the act itself feel so good? Because what you were really doing wasn't cheating. It was something psychologists call mastery play. And understanding why those button combinations mattered might change how you see every game you've ever played since. Let's set the stage. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas dropped in October 2004, and it was massive. Not just culturally, literally. The map was 3 cities. 3. Los Santos, San Fierro, Las Venturas. You could fly planes. You could customize your character's body. You could date 6 different women and accidentally start gang wars because you wore the wrong color bandana in the wrong neighborhood. It was chaos. Beautiful, overwhelming chaos. But for most kids, the real game wasn't the story missions or the side quests. The real game was the cheat codes. And here's what's fascinating. You probably spent more time inputting cheat codes than you did actually playing the game straight. R1, R2, L1, X, left, down, right up, left, down, right up for a jetpack. Circle, right, left, square, triangle, up for lower wanted level. You had entire sequences memorized like your own phone number, and this wasn't just you. This was everyone. Because what was happening wasn't about the game anymore. It was about control. Psychologists who study play have this concept called agency, the feeling that your actions matter, that you're in command of your environment. And here's what's wild. Cheat codes give you more agency than playing the game the intended way ever could. When you follow the story missions, you're on rails. You're doing what Rockstar tells you to do when they tell you to do it. But when you type in a cheat code, you're rewriting the rules. You're a god. Think about the last time you used the flying cars cheat. You weren't trying to complete an objective. You were trying to see what would happen if you drove a Hydra jet through the streets of Los Santos with a 5-star wanted level. You were experimenting. You were testing the boundaries of a world that suddenly bent to your will. That feeling, that rush of control, that's what your brain was chasing. But it goes deeper. When you were a kid, your brain was in what developmental psychologists call the concrete operational stage. You were learning how systems work, cause and effect. If I do this, then that happens. And cheat codes were the perfect laboratory. They were predictable. They were repeatable. They had rules. And here's the part that is going to hit different. Memorizing those button combinations wasn't a waste of time. It was practice. Your brain was learning pattern recognition, muscle memory, spatial reasoning. Psychologists call this procedural memory, the same system that helps you ride a bike or type without looking at the keyboard. Every time you input L1, L2, R1, R2, up, down, left, right. L1, L2, R1, R2, up, down, left. Right for full health and armor, you were training your brain to internalize sequences, to turn conscious effort into automatic behavior. That's why you can still remember them. Right now, 20 years later. You couldn't tell me what you had for lunch last Tuesday, but you could input the weapons cheat from memory without hesitation. Because your brain filed it under important information when you were 12. It encoded it at high resolution, the same way it encoded your best friend's name or the layout of your childhood home. But here's the uncomfortable part. You weren't in love with GTA San Andreas. You were in love with feeling competent. Because let me ask you something. What was your actual life like in 2004? You were probably in middle school or high school. You had homework you didn't understand. You had social dynamics you couldn't navigate. Maybe you had a crush who didn't know you existed. Maybe your parents were fighting. Maybe you felt invisible. And then you go to your friend's house, pick up that controller, and suddenly you had the power to summon a tank. To fly, to make the world do exactly what you wanted. Nostalgia is a liar. It airbrushes out the context. You remember the jetpack. You remember flying over Mount Gilead with Free Bird playing on KDST, but you forget that you were using San Andreas as an escape hatch from a world where you had no control. Where adults made all the decisions. Where you couldn't even choose what time you went to bed. The cheat codes weren't just fun. They were a coping mechanism. They gave you a world where the rules were negotiable, where you could undo mistakes, where game over just meant hitting continue. And your brain, your anxious, overwhelmed, puberty-addled brain needed that so badly that it permanently encoded those button combinations into long-term memory. You thought you were just playing a game. But what you were really doing was teaching yourself that chaos can be controlled if you just know the right sequence. So should you feel bad about that? Should you cringe at the hours you spent spawning rhino tanks and shooting down police helicopters with a minigun? No, because here's the thing. You needed that. Psychologists talk about sandbox play, the kind of play where there's no goal, no score, no win condition. You're just experimenting, and that kind of play is essential for development. It's how you learn to problem solve, how you learn to think creatively, how you learn that failure isn't permanent. Every time you used a cheat code to create absolute chaos and then watched the consequences unfold, you were running experiments. You were asking, what if? And that question, that curiosity, that's the foundation of learning. The point isn't to recreate the past. You can't go back to being the kid who felt invincible with the jetpack cheat. But you can remember what those experiences taught you, that systems can be understood, that patterns can be learned. That control is possible if you just take the time to figure out the sequence. Maybe you don't need to reinstall San Andreas and spend another 100 hours in Los Santos. Maybe you just need to remember that the best parts of that game weren't the graphics or the story or even the chaos. They were the moments when you felt capable, when you felt like you'd mastered something, when you felt like you had agency in a world that so often felt random and overwhelming. And maybe, just maybe, you can give yourself permission to seek out that feeling now. Not through cheat codes, but through learning new skills, through tackling problems that felt impossible. Through remembering that the kid who could input R1, R2, L1, R2 left, down, right up, left, down, right up from muscle memory, that kid figured things out. That kid learned systems. That kid was smart. They still are.